Hello, my name is Jennifer Robinson. I'm from Hanover, Pennsylvania. My Irish story is around 1802. We have Bridget Brabazon. And Bridget was married to Edward Neary, and about 1846 they decided to head towards the United States. In 1847 they left early in the year. They brought along Bridget's father, John Brabazon. He would have been about 80 years old. They brought along their 6 children. And we all know it was the Great Famine of 1847. We know that they were headed towards Quebec, and they were the first, in part of that first wave of, there was a terrible typhus going around, and they started calling them the coffin ships. And they were part of that first wave of landing in Quebec. Do we set up hospitals? Do we set up tents? And they started building all of these onshore tents to hold as many of these people as possible. They're coming off the ships, they're getting sick, and people are dying. So during the journey of the Irish ship, Grandfather John passed away, was buried at sea. And we do know that from a record. And plus it's part of the family history. And Father Edward Neary, who was the teacher of the family and teacher in Elfin, Ireland, passed away on the shore of Quebec. I'm sorry, it chokes me up, because I can't imagine what Bridget went through watching her husband and 4 of her children die in a matter of 4 or 5 days. And their bodies are not buried anywhere. There was 7,000 people who died on that shore. And they're in a mass burial grave, and there's just a memorial there. But we know that Bridget and her 2 children survived, and they went to Governor, St. Lawrence County, New York. Bridget lived another 30 years. She was about 88 when she died. Her photo, though, when I look at it, kind of haunts me. I can't imagine what she went through. She, just looking at her, what she went through, what she lost. So it reminds me. And it reminds me of my family, my mom reminding me of Irish St. Patrick's Day every year, which I never really paid attention to. So we know that they went to St. Lawrence County, and also Jane, who was the daughter who lived, she survived, and she also married another Irish person from the McCabe family, who was also from Elfin, Ireland, who also immigrated the same year. I don't know enough about his history or his family, but I do know about mine. Son Edward grew up to be a judge in St. Lawrence County, and he went on to have 2 grown children himself who had families and were the descendants. So Edward Neary grew up and became a judge and a lawyer in his town. That would be Edward. And newspaper accounts say that Edward, when he would speak from his judge's bench, would have that distinct Irish voice. He wouldn't talk down to people, but he liked to use that Irish tone. I do know that all of the photographs that I have of Edward have lots of family around him. And this would be Edward's house. It's a cabin he built in the Adirondacks, and he named it after Elfin, the town he came from. But it's very interesting to me that to see him with so much family around, because I think from his roots, what they must have left behind and what he lost when he was a child, that he just loved having all of these people, family members and friends, come visiting him a lot. So I think it's a testimony to whatever they must have gone through in those years. I don't have a lot of information about what they went through. We know facts, we know things from census, and we know things from newspaper accounts, which can portray a little bit more of Edward's more of his livelihood and what he did around town and who he was hanging with and his influence in his town. And I think that his Irish influence was definitely something that he wanted to leave behind. And it's definitely carried on with the family. My mom was the big researcher in our family. She wrote a simple grandchildren's story about the ship's story and the voyage of the Neary family coming to the United States. And we read it every year on Thanksgiving, which I think it would be important for Edward to know and the Nearys to know that we still think about them and we still think about what they went through and what they left behind. And I hope my family gets to go see Ireland because we have roots there and our blood is there. We have people there who are family and buried there. So I'm looking forward to seeing Ireland very soon.